Ted Rall, and that over there is my co-host, Manila Chan. You are listening to the Ted Manila Information Show. Yes, it's TMI for short, where we will bring you way too much information. We're going to be covering everything from news, politics, lifestyle, culture, fad diets, what the kids are up to, what the senior citizens are up to, what the dead people are up to, the taboo
voting.
Everyone, yeah, Biden including, the everything and anything goes, because you can really never have too much information in this information-saturated world. But if you are looking for a straight-laced, button-down news program, yeah, you're probably not going to want to be here. Just go somewhere else. CNN awaits. It's stuff you want to hear about, and maybe some stuff you never knew you needed to know. I know that's the kind of stuff I like to listen to. And, we can't help but laugh our way into oblivion. We are now live, and we are here every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So be sure to like and follow this show. Please subscribe, whether you're on Rumble, YouTube, or watching it anywhere else. The Ted Manila Information Show starts right now. And introduce our guest and what we're talking about.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Okay, so we're flipping the show a little backwards than we would ordinarily do it, compared to the one show that we had so far. So I think the viewers who have followed Ted and I in our careers, I think you're familiar with this particular person. I'm going to pop him up on screen and then we'll introduce him properly here. Let me make sure I got all my boxes just right, because it's a new show and we have a lot of kinks to still work out. All right, right there, that's Professor Glenn Diesen at the University of Oslo. He's a professor of political science and history there. His newest book is out now. It is called The Ukraine War and the Eurasian World Order. Professor, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
So we're going to talk to you about something a little different than we would ordinarily pick your brain about. In this case, let's start with your personal experience very recently and very publicly with YouTube censorship of your channel. What happened? What did they tell you? And we know you're back now, but what was that process?
No, it was it was quite interesting actually, because I'm actually writing a book on censorship and in the digital space. I've written previously.
What if they censor it?
Sorry?
What if they censor it?
Well, this was the interesting part, because I've written other books on related topics, and then with the rise of these digital platforms, and it ended up with them canceling my YouTube channel, which was quite surprising, because there was I had no warnings at all, but suddenly they just deleted the channel without any warnings. And the reason for such an abrupt reaction was what they called severe and repeated hate speech, which I thought was very strange, because usually the people I interview are people like Jeffrey Sachs or Jack Matlock, Chas Freeman. Yeah, I never heard anyone uttering any words of hate at all. So this was severe and repeated was a surprise. And eventually I received another email saying after some complaints and possibly some external influence, I got another email saying, oh no, there's no hate at all. So we restored it, with a few thousand followers missing, but otherwise it's very strange, and you're never in contact with another human being. It's all automated emails, so it's very
I get the impression that that the default mode of companies like YouTube and many others is if they get a flag, it's automatically, or maybe more than one flag of a post, the content is automatically deleted and pending review or pending some kind of appeal, and then maybe somewhere a human being in like Singapore looks at it, and they try to figure out whether or not really it's valid, and then maybe you get restored. It's not a really good system. I mean, we kind of think of due process, and there's just nothing even approximating it. You're guilty and innocent.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You can't really complain. You get one appeal, which you can send into YouTube, and then you get another automated reply. No, we reviewed it again, within the next 2 minutes, and it has been decided that it's permanently closed. So it's very frustrating, especially for people who rely on it for their work. So it is the new public square, and there's not much you can do to complain. There's no day in court. There's no, you can't explain yourself. It's very frustrating.
It's Kafkaesque. Kafka is on trial. He doesn't know why.
Yeah, well, this is literally what happened. So I really could not understand. Well, I had one suspicion. That is, I had the last guest I had on, or one of the last two at least, was Alexander Dugin, and I know he's has some books and all banned in the United States. I think it's mainly for his views on the Ukraine war, but again, our conversation was mostly about the challenges of modernity. So his views on why the pre-modern should not be left behind. So we never mentioned the war or Ukraine or anything like this in the entire talk. So, but it could be merely that his name popped up and then they delete the whole channel. So it doesn't make it any better, to be honest.
But I got to ask you, I mean, since you're over in Norway, how do Norwegians view what's happening in the U.S. in terms of the various censorship? I'm sure it's out there in the media. Are you guys experiencing the same thing within your own society, within your own civilization? Is it very different than what's happening here in the U.S. right now?
Well, in Europe, there's no separate or independent digital ecosystem. So whatever digital platforms used in the United States is the exact same ones we use here, only that the decision making here would be even further away. But there is discussion about this rise of these digital giants and the power they have. But otherwise, the Europeans appear to be very much supportive, at least the European governments, of the idea of content moderation, as they say, and deplatforming, having not just right of speech, but responsibility of speech, all of these kind of slogans. So a good example would be the EU's, what we call him, the censorship czar. I think his official title is something different. It's but anyways, he actually sent an email to a letter to Elon Musk before he was interviewing Donald Trump, because they suspected there might be hate speech and there might be disinformation. So they asked him not to even post the interview live. So a way of censoring before it happens. So it kind of shows the direction we're going. So a lot of the EU leaders, at least, they seem to be applauding the decision to censor.
Is that across all political parties, across the whole spectrum, that you're noticing in Europe, or is it one party more so than the other or others?
Well, it tends to be the incumbents, the people currently in power, but you have people on the left and the right usually who contest some of this, and as in all other areas, be it security, economy, or free speech, you see as the political center continues to ignore what the public wants, it creates a vacuum which is filled by people on the left and right. Not some of them are good, some of them are not great, but nonetheless, this is the general direction you're going, as people often feel that the political elites as well as the media begin to distance themselves a bit too far from the public.
Centrism and reasonable are usually equated in discourse in the mainstream corporate media in the West, right? And that's kind of like what you see here, right? Like, same thing in the United States, of course, obviously. It's centrist Democrats, corporate Democrats, and centrist corporate Republicans who are in favor of controlling speech. And then, it's so funny because then the left and the right, which are portrayed as extreme, are actually, when it comes to free speech, far more reasonable.
Yeah, we have this phenomenon now, which is the radical center, in which the people actually
Yeah.
in power. No, but
Militant moderates.
they tend to push very extreme policy. If you look at the Germans, for example, it's they call the far left and the far right, which is everyone from Sarah Wagenknecht to AfD. They're the extreme on the left and right, but they're the ones pushing for peace. They're the one pushing for
Right.
supporting
Lunatics.
national industry and supporting free speech, while the radical center effectively they do the exact opposite. They don't want to talk about peace. They're criminalizing diplomacy. They're not following their national interests. See their industries collapsing, and of course, being very gung ho on censorship. So
Yeah, like Annalena Baerbock.
I just want to add,
right?
there's a lot, of
Germany.
course, a lot of reasons. Yeah, since she kind of embodies the radical center ideal, but no, it's things are going the wrong direction. But it's you can't keep going like this forever, and this is why they see now the opposition rising in the polls, but they're not ready to give up on power yet. So when you look in France, for example, the party coming in third, which is Macron, they still demand the right to rule, while in Germany, the main opposition, AfD, they're considering whether or not they should ban it. So there's an effort to prevent new reality from asserting itself, but it's just going to make the backlash come so much harder when it eventually breaks through.
So, what do you think is the motivation of these like militant moderates gone wild? Is this just naked self-interest, or do they actually believe that there is a danger to their societies from what they call misinformation or disinformation? Is it just a put on to try to maintain control and their own prerogatives, or do they really think that a gullible public is being suckered by lies, and that they are the benevolent arbiters who will be able to prevent those lies from spreading?
I think it's both. I think some of it's genuine concern about the new digital technologies, the different platforms, that the gatekeepers are effectively gone who can filter between what is true and what is false. So some of this can be seen as being legitimate, but of course what they're asking for is complete empowerment of governments, as well as who've been caught lying throughout the few years now. So if you really want I'm not saying that's not a problem with fake news and disinformation, but usually the way it works is you have bad ideas being countered by good ideas. Instead,
Right.
we now see governments want to set up their own fact checkers, which are ideologues. Governments wants to decide what is real. Sometimes governments sign up in partnerships. For example, Facebook sets up partnership with a lot of the mainstream media, which effectively then giving the power to censor their opposition. They're now their rivals in the alternative media. So why should New York Times and Washington Post have the authority to effectively blacklist digital platforms by giving these blacklists to Google so they can trim their algorithms? So there's a lot of problems. And also, if you see governments now demanding the right to determine what is true, what is real, like a Ministry of Truth, it's very problematic. If you see over the past few years how much this has been abused for political reasons. I mean, even Mark Zuckerberg has admitted that the Biden administration pressured him to Facebook, that is, to censor real news, the satire, humor, and also the Hunter Biden laptop story, which was election interference. There's no other word for it. They saw this being a bad back in 2020.
And he still does, I might add, right?
Right.
I mean, Facebook still throttles political speech. Just about a week or two ago, Zuckerberg was quoted in the New York Times saying that he doesn't think users are interested in political speech. I'm like, well, I find that very difficult to believe, particularly during an election year.
He lives in a different world, Ted. He actually has a bunker, a multi-million-dollar bunker being built in Hawaii. So he lives in a different world, surrounded by different people. So I don't think he's a very
I hope it's like
normal person.
Dr. No, like with the awesome window with the sharks swimming by. I mean, the thing is though, he's like, and as a political cartoonist, my Facebook feed, I'll put a political cartoon up on Facebook. that would have gone viral on X, but on Facebook, it'll get like 3 likes, right? Then I post something about my cat, I get like 1,000 likes. So you can tell. I mean, look, he's a great looking cat, but still.
Well, once they find out he's a Russian blue, it's over.
That's true.
If you hashtag
Yeah,
Russian
I
blue.
don't let them know that. I call him a Ukrainian blue, you know.
Oh, okay. That might help. Yes,
Yeah.
for safety purposes, so you're not, demoted on the.
And I don't want him
algorithm.
to be droned.
But well, this leads us to the next topic is that, and I think this is tangentially all related with because of the Ukrainian war, and Glenn, earlier this year we started seeing American mainstream media such as the what do they call it? It's not the breakfast show, but it's
Yeah, Charlemagne the
Mika
God is
Brzezinski.
the. Oh yeah.
Mika Brzezinski.
Morning Joe.
And
Morning Joe.
and Joe Scarborough. Even they were starting to pull back their rhetoric on Ukraine winning, and they started, I felt like, telling the truth about what was happening on the ground. But here we are 9 months later from the new year, or 10 months later at this point. And again, we're seeing a new surge of this American mainstream media going back to their old rhetoric of saying Ukraine's going to come through at the end. And now we're starting to see, coincidentally, a lot of censorship and this latest round of sanctions by the Biden-Harris administration, specifically towards mine and Ted's old employers, right? We had the effective closure of RT Productions here again, as well as Sputnik this time. This was announced September 13th, and the language was quite nebulous, and it just all-encompassing. Anything can be considered, aiding and abetting the Russians.
And by the way, no assertion in the case of Sputnik of any violation of American law. No claim of any violation of American law, much less any evidence of it. Literally, the U.S. government does not say that Sputnik did anything wrong. Just
right, but that's the point of the sanctions. I mean, if you read through them on state.gov, they specifically do not qualify their language. They specifically leave it broad, so that way they can just accuse anybody and every entity of, quote, helping the Russian Federation. It could be anything.
And what's particularly terrifying is, like, our former boss over there, he told me that he wanted to hire an attorney. I mean, of course, I have to say, I told him to do this 5 years ago, but he wanted to hire an attorney to fight this. Look, the First Amendment protects all media outlets in the United States, or supposedly does, against direct U.S. government censorship, which is what this is, including foreign outlets, right? But, CBC, BBC, et cetera, they did not, but now with this happening, I guess he waited a little too late. And now he can't even hire attorneys because the bank accounts are frozen, right?
Right.
So there's no way, attorneys don't work for free, for the most part. So not for this kind of case. So maybe spilled hot coffee all over himself, sure, but not for this.
This is effectively censorship by way of sanctions, right? A kind of a workaround, because we are American citizens and we have freedom of speech, but they can say they're not censoring us, but these are sanctions placed on business entities based in Moscow. Why would the Biden-Harris administration do this in the 11th hour as Biden is about to sunset and retire, and who knows what's going to happen in 2.5 weeks? Why would the Biden administration take this final swipe at Russia by basically eliminating American jobs?
And by the way, in a really, I got to say, what I don't understand is why they were so scared of RT and Sputnik, considering that the viewership was infinitesimal. I mean, very, very, it's not like it had broad access. It probably could have done better if it had been better promoted. But, it was a blip. It wasn't moving many.
What are
even if it was all propaganda all the time, it wasn't propagandizing many people.
No, well, I'm a bit surprised by how quickly everything was normalized as well. Only a few years ago, people thought in the U.S. freedom of speech was it was guaranteed, but it is the government can't censor, but corporations can, and So I think they can go around it by, as Zuckerberg, as I said before, admitted that the government tells them to censor and they pressure to censor, and then the government pretends as if they're
It's by
still
proxy.
following the law. So yeah, so it is strange how, but how this was normalized, because it began so quietly. I always go back to the Alex Jones example, how it's very recent. It was 2018 when we began with this deplatforming, as if it's removing dangerous speech, and look how normal it is now. People disappearing off the internet left and right, and it's just the way it is. No, it's I think a key reason behind this is that in the past it was easier to defend freedom of speech, because in the past international media was dominated by US and British media. So I think from the especially from the late 2000s, when you had the Al Jazeera's, RTs, all this coming up, there was more pressure to reassert control over the media, because if you follow the media these days, there's very few facts you get. Instead they have narratives. It's all these big narratives, and when you don't follow the narrative, the consequences are quite radical. And I see it in this country too. If I, as an academic, make let's say I point out that NATO escalations in Ukraine, then the Russians are doing horizontal escalation, so sending weapons to Iran or making a weapons deal with North Korea, then they say, well, why are you legitimizing it by presenting it as a reaction? You're rationalizing it. Why are you taking the side of authoritarian governments against democracy? So you can't even make a statement about an objective reality. This is how the Russians see it, that we're escalating, and this is how they're responding. But you're not allowed to do it because it counters the main narrative, which is, we're there just to help, and we're not involved in this. And if they're helping the Iranians, it's because authoritarians are coming together to fight freedom. It becomes ridiculous after a while, and everything is about the fear of legitimizing the opponent, which means you can't actually discuss their main security concerns.
Yeah, and Glenn, as we said, this is why would they even bother? I mean, Biden is obviously no longer the nominee. We're 2.5 weeks out. I
Manila,
honestly
I
don't
think
know.
I have a theory, right? So after 9/11, Dick Cheney and buttonholed George W. Bush immediately, like within 24 hours of the attacks, and said we have to attack Iraq right away. But they didn't, right? They attacked Afghanistan first, and then they went into Iraq about 1.5 years later. And at the time, I was obsessed with that. I went to Afghanistan, and my theory there was Afghanistan was a dry run. It was a country that they knew, the neocons knew that they could easily, dominate and take over, although obviously they lost in the long run. But they knew they could invade it easily. The country didn't have an air force. It was not going to be able to resist. It was basically had 14th century technology. I think this is like that. If you're going to start a regime of censorship of media organizations, you're going to start with a small one. TikTok is huge, and notice all the pushback to the congressional attempt to ban TikTok in the United States or force a sale to a U.S. entity, right? But TikTokers, there's millions of them. Many of them earn
billions.
TikTok, yeah, and a lot of people make money off of it, and they're really angry, they're pissed off. So that's creating pressure that the people who watch and enjoy, and the few of us who made a living off of RT and Sputnik can't do. We can't summon that degree of outrage. Russia's an easy target. It's sort of like how in the 1970s they started out by censoring porn, right? I mean, porn. You go with the soft target, the one that nobody cares about, the one that the mainstream media will say, well, they're not real journalists. You start with them, and then it's first. It's the Martin Niemöller quote. First, they came for the Russians, and I didn't say anything because I didn't care about the Russians, and I supported Ukraine. Next, they came for. That's my theory. I think it was easy.
What do you think, Glenn?
I think you're correct, and I think this is how censorship also works. You don't suddenly one day break one of the most sacred traditions. It has to go through. they began not even with Russia, but with Iran. The U.S. government began to seize some of the online domains of Iranian media, removing it. No one's going to support the Iranians, so then they go after the Russian media, even banning it as they've done now. And then they, of course, begin to force TikTok to be sold or banned. Then they're pressuring censorship on Al Jazeera and move along to Africa Stream, the censoring. So it's this gradual. And they also do this domestically against their own public. That is, you begin with someone like Alex Jones, because he was really the main one to be deplatformed, and a lot of people didn't like him. I mean, he had some very rude opinions. I always point to Sandy Hook as being the best one.
Yes.
So he's seen as a fringe character. Everyone sees him as controversial, and then so nobody wants to stand up for him because of how he uses free speech. So. You pick him off. People think, yeah, of course. We see how he's the extreme on the outside. So everyone thinks this is the exception. This is where we draw the line, and they don't see that this is the precedent. Because if we can knock him out, then why not this guy as well? And then suddenly you expand it more and more to the point now where the government's effectively doing it very much in the open. And it's So I think the incrementalism is definitely the way censorship goes.
Well, I mean, Julian Assange is a prime example, right? I mean, for the last 15 years or so that he's been in hot water. I mean, thankfully he's free now. But again, hardly anybody really spoke out for pushing for his freedom, right? And doing what he did was truly, exemplary journalism. And he was demonized. And I would say that was the canary in the coal mine. And it has been exploited with every U.S. president since then, with Barack Obama, and then Mike Pompeo under Donald Trump, who actually plotted to kidnap him from the Ecuadorian embassy to murder him for the crime of journalism. And then, of course, Joe Biden has been an absolute horror to free speech and alternative media. And my fear, because I really don't know which way this election is going to go in 2.5 weeks. But I fear that if Kamala Harris does win, that she will be abhorrent on freedom of speech and freedom of the press, and will further continue what Joe Biden has already begun. Any final thoughts?
I agree with you, but not that Donald Trump will be very different, right? Glenn,
no, that's what I'm saying.
That. I mean, Donald Trump literally said that he wants to use the military and the National Guard against the enemies within. That's broadly, vaguely defined. Obviously, Donald Trump just says a lot of things to see what sticks to the wall. But, I mean, he obviously, it's not, Democrats aren't wrong when they point out that, Trump has some authoritarian tendencies.
Yeah, but I think before the two of you asked why I think Biden would do this on his way out, but I really don't think that he's in full control of the policies of the government, and I think Kamala Harris would be to a large extent a front figure. What's interesting with Trump is seems a few people control him, but that doesn't mean he's going to have better policies. It just means that he's more difficult to control. But this is why I was fascinated by how the media worked with Biden as well. Look what they did to him. He was stating he would not step down. He would stay in the race. A few hours later, he's tweeting his resignation, which his staff didn't know. Kamala Harris, no one cared about her for 4 years. She was an embarrassment, and suddenly overnight she becomes a rock star. And it's just it's all fake in my view. This is. And Biden, of course, has disappeared. Who sees him anymore? He's barely on the TV. People not talking him up anymore now. Yeah, so it's all great media management. But this is the problem, because whenever they want to censor someone, they use these terms like propaganda or hate. But no one defines these concepts to decide when you have breached that line, and also which you need also for consistency. So by, for example, calling all Russian media propaganda, this is propaganda means nothing now. It means contesting the argument of the
dissenting
of the political elites. So this is how I'm whenever I'm accused of Russian propaganda as well. It's it's usually if I say even something benign, like the Russians consider NATO to be their main threat to the security. Every political party in Russia recognizes this, sees it. It's been recognized by many Western leaders, but nonetheless, if you say it, they say, well, that's what the Russians are saying. Now you're repeating Putin's lines. We're not saying it, so now you're spreading propaganda. This is a very weird definition of propaganda.
So strange.
You have
NATO was
to
created.
conform to government statements.
NATO was created to oppose the Soviet Union. That was its purpose. Listen to NATO,
Yeah, final thoughts, Glenn, and we're letting you go. I'm putting your book on the screen there so people can see your newest book. I know you're working on one more. Final thoughts on all of this as we barrel into the U.S. 2024 elections very soon. Any final thoughts or predictions from Norway?
No, not many. I think it could go either way. I think I think a lot of people don't want to in the United States. They see that things are going the wrong way. I think every polling shows this well. The country's going in the wrong direction, and I think it's very hard to convince people that Kamala Harris will be very different from Biden. But I still think people are quite cautious about what could come from Trump. But I think it's just going to be. I would probably put my money on Trump because
really
the biggest warning against him in 2020 was he was going to start, a nuclear war with Iran or take the world to war. But now we've seen it's the Biden-Harris administration that's taking us to the brink of nuclear war with the Russians. Probably we might have a war now with the Iranians over the next few weeks. It's just. I think people just willing to gamble on anything else, not necessarily having the greatest trust in Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's always the argument of which one is the least worse for us to choose from, and here we are again, and it seems to never ever change in the U.S. I don't know how to explain that for our population, but Professor, I know you got to go. I appreciate your time, Professor Glenn Diesen. Thank you so much. He's a professor of political science and history at the University of Oslo in Norway. His newest book, right there on the screen, is out now. It is called The Ukraine War and the Eurasian World Order. Thank you so much, Glenn.
Buy the book.
My pleasure. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. So, wow, we got a prediction of Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think I agree with that too. If you just look, first of all, historically, and I used to always talk about this, and I have kind of forgotten to talk about it lately. But historically, if you just look at poll trends, Republicans have always gained in the last few weeks of an election campaign. Historically, at around the time of the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, in the summer, July or August, typically, you would need to be a Democratic candidate and prevail in the fall. You would want to have at least an 8, and really to be comfortable, a 10 to 12 point lead against your Republican opponent. That didn't. It's like, and then that lead just closes, right? If you're a Democrat and ahead, it never. You're just not going to see it go the other way around. I can't think of an election in my lifetime where Democratic polling improved between Labor Day and Election Day. I just don't think that happens. So the only thing if I were the Harris campaign, I'd be very nervous. I would say, the trends are not looking good because they're the usual historical trends. Trump is ticking up. And, I think people are coming around to my idea that this election comes down to the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. Right. And the public just doesn't know her. They don't connect with her. Yeah. It's like the Mulder poster in X-Files, I Want to Believe. She announced they wanted to believe.
Sure.
But they were.
But it's interesting to hear that from Professor Diesen, because, being European, that people are starting to wake up to the fact that it's the Democrats, it's that party that's in power now that has inched us that much closer to a full-scale war, bringing in NATO and perhaps going into World War III, that people are kind of realizing that, and that people in Europe are actually going, maybe Donald Trump's not so bad because he didn't actually start any new wars. But
don't forget, he ended a war, and people forget that. They don't talk about it. Even Trump's defenders never talk about it. I don't get it. It's like it's like, but he negotiated.
Because it makes you not strong, man.
Yeah, maybe. But I give him massive credit for this, and I've said so. I'm not going to vote for him, but I give him major props for the fact that he opened negotiations with the Taliban in Doha. Yes. That those negotiations were difficult by all accounts, but ultimately he negotiated a withdrawal. And to Biden's credit, when he inherited that deal from Trump, he decided to pursue it and follow through on it, and then did lead to the withdrawal. Now, the execution notwithstanding,
different conversation.
But look, we were not going to win. We were not going to ever keep that government. That puppet government was not sustainable under Ashraf Ghani. We needed to leave. We should have maintained a presence there. We should have kept our embassy there. We should have maintained diplomatic relations with the Taliban. We should have given them their money back and then some. We owe them. We broke Afghanistan. We should put it back together. That's probably something we should talk about at some other point. But the point is, Trump did end the Afghan war, and that's huge. It was America's longest war. 20
They should have
years.
campaigned. I know. I don't know why they're not campaigning on it. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to use our Jaws wipe because I love the creaky sound. But then I'm going to roll while we take this quick break. I call this video Science is Magic. And if you guys can tell me how this stuff is done in the Rumble chat, I would greatly appreciate it, because I'm
or
not
the YouTube
a sciencey,
comments, right? You can do
or
it
the
in
YouTube,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like, and with that, let me remind you guys, please, if you are in the Rumble chat, make sure you hit the subscribe button that's right below where you would be typing in your, your remarks or whatever. No, the subscribe is the monthly subscribe.
Oh, right.
And it's next to the dollar symbol. Don't click the dollar. Well, you can click the dollar symbol, but that's
we would
not
love
the
you to
actual,
click the dollar symbol.
That's not the actual subscribe button. That is like a one-time donation button, the dollar symbol. It's the actual button next to it that says subscribe if you guys want to support our brand new startup venture here and help us keep this going, because Ted and I could only do this with viewer support, and we're going to do this for as long as we can. Now that we are officially kaput from any real steady paychecks. So this is, it's up to you guys to help us so we can keep creating content and doing this show for you guys. So do please hit subscribe if you are able to do that with a $5. It's a monthly $5 sub, kind of like Subway, like Subway sandwiches, $5 sub. So if you can do that,
it's the cost of like a mocha. So
it's less.
My mocha is $5.75 in New York. Yeah.
Wow. Well, exactly. $5 is less than what you can buy at Starbucks, a cup of coffee. So, and that's per month. So we would greatly appreciate any help. So with that, I'm gonna hit the
and on YouTube, please subscribe.
And please subscribe on YouTube. Then
that's
their
free.
Button language is that one's free. Their language is totally different than Rumble's language. Yeah, it's a whole thing. But anyway, you guys look at this cool little science video. Ted and I are going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to talk. We're going to have a food fight, and we'll explain on the other side of this. It's a food fight. I'll explain. But you guys look at this science video, and if anybody knows how to explain it to me, please.
Oh, and we have headlines too. Right.
Oh yeah, and headlines.
Headlines first.
Yeah, we did it. We did it backwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna take a break and drink water and stuff. All right.
Do the whoosh. Here comes the whoosh.
We gotta do the whoosh. And here's science.
Not magic. This is a real science experiment. Draw a circle with garlic on the bottom of the pan. The eggs will be round. Touch the garlic with your hand. You can easily lift the spring. This is the disulfide bond. You put a ruler in the dark and flick it. It moves up and down quickly. If you put it in the bright light and fluctuate it, it becomes a wavy motion. That's the magic jelly effect. A ruler can be easily knocked down. Putting a piece of paper on top of a ruler can't be knocked down. That's the power of atmospheric pressure. water. This hole won't fit through a disc. When you fold it up, it'll go right through. It's a visual illusion. Roll the paper into a cylinder and put it over the mouth of the glass. Ignite the top. You'll see the smoke coming down, like a white waterfall. Cut the lemon in half. Dip a cotton swab in the lemon juice. Write a secret on a piece of white paper, and when it's heated, it slowly appears. This is the secret of the wordless book. Take out the frozen grapes. Put them in ice water. The water condenses around the grapes. You have the power to turn water into ice. Tear off the rubbing paper from a matchbook. It burns and leaves a brown grease stain. Apply it to your fingers. Friction produces white smoke. This is the secret of the magician's smoke. Insert 2 pencils into a glass of salt water. Put in a battery. You will see hydrogen and oxygen gases decomposing. Put 2 bottle caps on a round magnet. Put another plastic plate. Spin the gyroscope. Remove the base plate. The gyroscope hangs in the air. This is magnetic levitation. Add baking soda to the cup, and a glass of white vinegar creates a mysterious gas, and this invisible gas can extinguish a burning candle. That's how fire extinguishers work.
Okay.
The science I want to know about is how to come that guy sounds
Magic.
like that.
I think it's an AI voice, but I mean,
This is
I know-
an AI voice.
like this spinning thing, I don't get that one. I don't know how that's done. I'm mystified. I don't know. The science is not my area of expertise.
They
so-
threw me out of Columbia School of Engineering and Applied Science after 3 years. I was a physics major, so I should be
That's
able
right.
to answer some of these questions. Now, granted, that was a long time ago, and you know,
I don't know if physics has changed,
A
Ted.
lot of glasses of Rioja and margaritas since then. So I don't know how any of these things work, really.
Yeah, I would love it if somebody can explain, like in the comments after the video is posted. I have any one of those.
You're
Any
sure it's
one
not
of those.
Russian misinformation, right?
It might be, but I think this is a Chinese video, so it might be Chinese misinformation, possibly.
I don't
So-
know. The one that I got to tell you, the one where I'm like, I don't know about that is that ruler thing with the paper.
Yeah, the ruler thing.
I'm going
I
to
didn't
check
get
that out. I have many rulers.
That's
And is
yes,
that
me
true?
too.
I don't think that's true about my metal rulers that I use as a draftsman. I doubt that. I'm going to try.
I have
that.
metal and plastic, so
I don't know. I don't think I have any plastic rulers because I'm not in grade school. But
well,
like,
I have a little one.
okay. Oh yeah, good point.
So I
So-
have all kinds of plastic rulers.
Do they
So-
still have the plastic rulers where there's the middle half cylinder divot to put your pencil in? Do you know what I'm talking about? That's how they were when I was a kid.
Oh, yes, I know. Yes, you can lay your pencil on top of it.
It was a very pleasant kind of
was
device, and
practical.
I loved being
Practical.
we used to all swat each other with them. Go like a
Yeah,
slap.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. No,
It
we had
hurt like a
the
bitch.
we used to we used to have the wooden ones in school that had the little metal edge on
Oh,
one side.
I still have one of those. It's those are great for drawing because the metal.
But we
edge
used to
is a
use them as
little
weapons.
higher. So if you have like a like a draftsman pen, it like rubs along instead of going. You know how the ink can smear and go under the ruler.
Yes.
Yeah. So for graphic artists, that's an essential tool.
Where I'm from, we used them as weapons against each other.
Oh yeah.
So
They hurt. Yeah. Yeah. My mom, who was
Shit that.
French, she told me that like in her French elementary school, if she didn't know her verb conjugations or her multiplication tables, the teacher would come around and order her,
Yep.
hold out hands and go whap across her knuckles.
Yep. My mom went to a French Catholic school, and that's what the nuns used to do is hit the girls with rulers, with those rulers.
What a
So-
beautiful culture it was.
All right. Let's hit the Jaws again, because after we come back from Jaws, I guess we gotta read headlines quickly, and try to keep on track and try to
Yeah,
keep
we're
this
running
train moving.
behind. Let's do it.
Let's go. It's almost like we're faking people out. All right. So since we did the show backwards today to accommodate getting our guest Glenn Diesen on, let's do the headlines, at least some of the biggest stories that we thought
Let's
today.
do it.
First up, Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, one of the masterminds, they say, of the October 7 attack on Israel was killed. It's confirmed now. I know, Ted, you announced it yesterday, and then they were like, they rescinded it, but now it's confirmed. He was
Poor
he was
guy
killed
doesn't know if he's alive or dead. He's
I
like
know
a vampire.
he was killed in an Israeli military operation in the Gaza Strip on Wednesday. They confirm now it is the most significant blow to the militant group since the start of the war. The Israeli military confirmed it on a tweet on Thursday that Sinwar had, quote, been eliminated. And they say
God, I
justice
hate
has
that.
been,
I hate that word.
I know, justice has been delivered. Every single terrorist who harms Israelis will pay the price, says Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
They need to
saying that.
look up the word justice, because that's not justice. That's an
I-
assassination. Justice
Right.
takes place in a court of law.
Yeah. I think about definitions. I think the Clintons rearranged how we understand words. Like, what is sex, Ted? Bill Clinton.
Well, in Bill Clinton's case, it included rimming. We never talk about that, but it's if you read the Starr report, it was in there. We get to talk about that.
Well,
We're no longer on FCC controlled air,
true.
but it's
Well,
in there. He apparently took a look at Monica's Tukas and decided he needed to do a deep dive, and he did that little analingus action. So it includes
well, he didn't.
that.
Well, he said that he didn't consider that sex, right?
Right.
So
No, I mean, no,
now-
that's
now
just
the
courtesy.
term
That's courtesy. It's like if you
justice-
meet someone at a business meeting, it's like,
the-
oh,
can I check out your
Let's-
butthole? All right, that's how do you define justice? So that's how the Israelis have defined justice.
by the way, that's what they got those words from the U.S. The U.S. said that Osama bin Laden, after he had been
Right.
assassinated by the U.S., had been delivered to justice. Like, no, he was supposed to be to a court.
Right. And then they go on to say that Sinwar was a singular figure who shaped Hamas in his image, and he will not be easily replaced. According to experts, his death could have profound reverberations for the course of this war and the future of the group. And quote, Sinwar had very unique attributes, said Gaith Al-Omari, a former Palestinian Authority negotiator and a senior fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. He continues, he says, he was someone who had very strong standing in both the political and military wings of the organization. So there's that. Another cool thing, I would say, and in fact, there's video that maybe we might want to show. I don't think there's enough time. All right.
There's no time.
No time. BRICS Pay has been unveiled. In a massive moment for the Economic Alliance, BRICS Pay has officially been unveiled at the BRICS Business Forum in Moscow. Participants received brand new cards for this long-awaited alternative payment system. The cards are the first official debut of this landmark project. Throughout the last 2 years, the BRICS bloc sought increased financial autonomy, obviously away from the West. BRICS.
We should explain what BRICS is. It stands for, what is it? BRICS. Brazil, Russia,
Brazil,
India, China, South Africa,
Saudi.
and then
excuse me, yeah, and then
South
all
and then
these.
plus.
They're
it's
adding all
BRICS
these
plus.
letters.
Yeah,
It's kind of like the
it's all-
LGBT.
It's like that. It's like the plus thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
they
There's a
keep
lot
adding-
of countries. There's
so you
there's
just-
scores of countries now that are members of BRICS. And this all
yeah.
came out of the sanctions that were imposed on Russia after
Right.
the invasion of Ukraine, and then Russia's economy was effectively cut off, something that the Russians had anticipated might happen many years earlier, and they had already created their own separate banking system. But this is an expansion to make it so that, like, the SWIFT system, which is
Right.
the Western international system, could be circumvented so that there would be an alternative. And many countries, including countries that are friendly to the West, could see the
Like
advantage
Saudi
of
Arabia.
having multiple options. And so that's
Like
what this
Saudi
is about.
Arabia. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And so it goes on to say BRICS has sought increased de-dollarization in an effort to reduce international reliance on Western currencies. With the bloc's annual summit just a week away, it has made a massive step now towards that goal. The bloc's BRICS Pay system was officially unveiled at this business forum there in Moscow. Those who participated in that event received this demo version of the card that was already preloaded with some rubles in there. And it has like a little QR code on it. So they just kind of went around paying with this preloaded BRICS Pay card. So that could be very bad news for you and I, Ted, because we're trying to make our dollar stretch as it is, but then when we go Zimbabwe style and a loaf of bread costs us like $100 million, that could be a problem.
Yeah, the problem that people don't understand, just to explain why this is a problem for the U.S., is that the U.S. is the world's leading, by far, reserve currency. The euro would be number two. And what a reserve currency is a currency that its country's central bank has to maintain in order to conduct transactions in the international market. And every country has billions and billions of U.S. dollars that are never used. And so as a result of that, effectively all those dollars are subsidizing and making your dollar that's in your pocket worth more than it would be otherwise. It's kind of a good way to think of it is, think of all the postage stamps that people buy or used to buy. Those postage stamps that sit in your drawer and have not been put on a stamp yet, or maybe, let's just say, stamp collectors. They're never going to use those stamps, right? They put them so that means the post office is selling a service they never have to deliver. And so it effectively subsidizes the cost of the mail. So it's like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what's bound to happen to us when BRICS plus unveils this whole thing across the block for real and people start making transactions with it. That's going to be a hard time for us here in the United States. But, as they say, elections have consequences.
Well, we cornered a very important group of countries, not just Russia, but China, North Korea, India. We tried to paint them into a corner, and they're like, fuck off.
People. Right. You try to bully people, and you're like, we're your friends, though.
I'm only bullying population. Blow me.
I'm bullying you because I love you, Ted. I'm bullying you because I love you. I'm telling you what's best for you. So you're just going to go ahead and use the Manila money that I'm giving you.
Thank you, ma'am. May I have another?
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, moving along. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has pitched his victory plan to the European Union and NATO, receiving pledges of continued support.
He might have done that 2 years ago. Victory plan might have been more useful 2 years ago to him.
I know, but it's a reboot. Ted,
he's been busy, right? He's been on the cover of like magazines
right. So he's rebooting his plan because it was a soft launch before. Now it's like a reboot of his victory plan. But he apparently got no endorsement from key allies for his call for an immediate NATO membership invitation. He's like, "Give me my invite now," and everyone was like,
"No."
Squeamish. So Zelensky said Ukraine supporters would be making a big mistake and strengthen Russia if they did not back that plan, which also calls for more weapons and permission to use Western long-range missiles to strike deep into Russia, not just like in the Kursk region. And at NATO headquarters, the newly minted Secretary General Mark Rutte, reassured Zelensky that Ukraine would join the Western military alliance, reiterating a long-standing pledge, but stopped short of backing that call for an immediate invitation. And I do have that quick soundbite, Ted. It's like 10 seconds. We gotta. I feel like we have to show that, because it's very quick. Let's put that up here. Oh, I got to move us out of the way. Sorry, still learning to use buttons there.
Yeah, because Manila has to co-host and produce. Sort of. Well, she's not really the producer.
No, but I'm punching the buttons.
Membership invitation.
I look forward to the day that Ukraine is here as a member of this alliance. And until then, we will continue to do all that we can to ensure Ukraine prevails. This is vital for our shared security.
Okay, so
by the way,
I don't know about
podiums, for people who can't see it, they kind of look like they're legs. They're don't they look like they're cut and pasted over like little legs?
That's the future, Ted. You're gonna be, like you're gonna be half cyborg from the waist down, I guess. I don't know how
This is
procreation
the
works.
Zelensky bot.
I think so.
He's
And then-
so short. He's so
I know
short.
he's like my size. Like
Yeah,
truly,
he's like a
my size.
pocket person.
I'm a normal sized woman,
Yeah,
but he's a
pocket
very
person.
small dude.
He's a micro dude.
He's a small dude. Then speaking of money, 2 U.S. subsidiaries of Canada's second largest bank agreed last week to pay $3 billion in fines. Now, people may not even know of this bank, but after they pled guilty to conspiring to money laundering here in the U.S. regulators imposed an asset cap and other business limitations, which were unusual steps that underscore the seriousness of these violations. Senior executives at TD Bank, I saw a huge explosion of that bank here not physically an explosion, but TD Bank was popping up everywhere, all over the DC area.
And New
Out of
York.
nowhere, just oh, really? It just was
TD
every
Bank
corner.
is a
We had
super
TD Bank.
interesting bank because it's the only bank, to my knowledge, where you can have an American citizen can have simultaneously U.S. and Canadian dollar denominated accounts and transfer them back and
Weird.
forth. It's very useful for people who go back and forth between the two countries, climate change, refugees, people who work near the border, and there are people who live in Maine and or they live in upstate New York and then they commute to Montreal or vice versa. People like that, yeah. Now TD, I mean, it's as a former banker, I found their model very interesting.
Right. Oh, yeah, they've largely folded now, and now I understand why. Because the senior executives at TD joked about money laundering, and they got caught. This is how this all transpired.
They all money launder,
and failed to
all
maintain
banks money
controls
launder.
to prevent. Here's my favorite part, and I'm kind of I don't know. This is the part that fascinates me. Apparently, they failed to maintain controls to prevent criminals from using the bank during an aggressive expansion in the United States, according to a DOJ spokesman. The bank allowed one criminal based in Queens, New York, David Z, I think it's pronounced S-Z-E, S-Z-E, Z, to move more than $470 million through TD over 3 years, depositing large amounts of cash into accounts opened by other people. Mr. Z bribed bank officials while laundering revenue from narcotics and other illicit activities. TD's dramatic failure in the United States highlights what experts see as long-standing weakness in Canada's regulatory regime regarding money laundering. And then
whatever. I mean, come on. This is like, I'm sorry, you show me the bank, I'll show you the money launderer.
I know. This is like
It's like insider information on Wall Street. Oh, they got caught trading. How dare you? I mean, it's ridiculous. They all do it. I mean, that's what Wall Street runs on.
I know. I was there, Ted, at the downtown LA office at Morgan Stanley. And at the time, they had just acquired Smith Barney. And that was also the time that they were bringing Facebook to IPO. I watched all of this happen. And I went, isn't this insider trading? But okay.
Oh, by the way, I have to say that we should give a shout out to Well-Dressed Nerd, who not only generously kicked in some money yesterday, but just donated another $10 today. So thanks, Well-Dressed Nerd.
Thank you, nerd. Thank you very much for that support. One last thing, talking about us going bankrupt, it's not just us, Ted. How about a final goodbye, Kmart shoppers? For Americans, you all know what we're talking about here. The last full-scale Kmart in the continental United States is set to close this Sunday in Bridgehampton, New York.
That was my Kmart.
Marking
until 4 years ago.
Marking the end of an era for the once iconic retailer known for its blue light specials. Who doesn't remember that? Every kid in America.
Attention Kmart shoppers. There's
Yes.
a blue light special in the sex toy aisle.
Flash discount announcements and celebrity partnerships. The chain struggled over the years to compete with Walmart, Target, and online retailers, obviously. Founded in 1899 as SS Krisk, the first Kmart brand. Kmart is a much better name. I don't know if I'd be shopping at SS Krisk.
I wonder if they changed that due to anti-German sentiment during World War I or World War
It
II.
must be.
There
It was
were
founded
all
in
sorts of, in World
1899.
War I, you know, there was so much anti-German hysteria. They were the Russians of their day.
Right.
That like, for example, in Columbus, Ohio, where there was a Germantown, there were anti-German riots, and
We have Germantown here in Virginia.
Scoundrels, racist scumbags ran through the streets killing German people randomly. They even had a hunt for German shepherd dogs and were killing them because and dachshunds, because they were allegedly like Hun dogs, like Kraut dogs. Yeah, people are crazy. War makes people insane and even stupider than they normally are. So, yeah.
Well, anyway, as we know, as it rebranded as officially Kmart, it opened in 1962. It was a pioneer in discount retailing. Its peak in the 1980s that's my era. Annual revenues exceeded $36 billion with more than 2,000 stores. By 1986, the store was the second largest retailer behind Sears. Kmart eventually filed for bankruptcy in 2002 and then a second bankruptcy in 2018, largely due to mismanagement, failed acquisitions, outdated locations, and failed to adapt to online shopping trends. After merging with Sears in 2005,
I would also add outdated stock
merchandise.
Right? Yeah. I mean, most importantly, I mean that I used to go to that Kmart in Bridgehampton. I lived nearby.
That's the last one.
And it was like, I mean, I remember thinking it was a little bit strange that there was a Kmart there at all. But you know, you went in there, it was definitely like a voyage into time. There used to be a Kmart in Astor Place in the East Village of New York City as well. But it was always like, this is like, you guys need to go over to Target and take a look at what they're doing, you know?
No, I don't like big box stores at all anymore. I only go there if I absolutely
I hate them. I mean, for me, it's like the mall, like all the malls have died. For me, it's like, it's a practical thing. It's like, okay, so you're going to park really far away. It's a long fucking walk until you even get to the front door. Then it's another long fucking walk, walking around the store. And you know, they have a lot of they have a lot of categories, but not a lot of entries in each category. And that just doesn't work in the day of online shopping, where you're like,
but it's
the specific exact thing I want delivered right to
it's an end of an era. And so I think
it is
an end of our childhood, Ted. It's gone. That part is dead.
I don't think it's going to be missed. I don't think Kmart's like, oh, it was so great. You know,
no, it's not that. It's just that it was so integral, as every kid in America knew Kmart, you know, of a certain age. That's the whole thing. It's just anyone of a certain age, we all knew Kmart. And we're just at the end of it. So
Kmart did have, was kind of thought of it. It was definitely kind of like lowbrow. It was like not.
I know.
In the burbs, it was like, oh, if you have to shop at Kmart.
We did.
Yeah.
We had to shop at Kmart. So that is it for the headlines in our Upside Down show today. Cue the Jaws. See, I'm telling myself.
There's the hiccup.
Yeah, I got to remove that little pause. Okay. Last thing we're going to talk about, Ted, and we'll try to make it kind of quick.
Yeah, we're in overtime, so we're going to have to.
Yeah.
We shouldn't even be here. We should be gone.
No.
We're supposed to have been gone over 2 minutes ago. Okay. We're going to get this down to an hour, though. We will.
We will.
I think this is going to be more me to force you, because you've in our old show, you always had a tendency to go long. So
we have to go
top here.
Okay. There's so much to talk about, though. So this in the Washington Post, if you guys haven't seen this, that there's a vast divide between Republicans and Democrats over fast food, right? So WAPO scoured campaign finance receipts and reports.
This is awesome.
To see strikingly partisan preferences over different kinds of restaurants. And I'm sure people, by me just saying that, I'm sure people already have an idea of like, oh, the Democrats are all hoity-toity and, you know, latte liberals. And
no, campaign food is always garbage, because it's always garbage.
Turns out it's kind of true, though, Ted. So as WAPO discovered, like, this is an old picture because Joe Biden doesn't even look like that anymore. But so if we skim through this, I'm going to go to for example, here, the late night order Vice President Kamala Harris put in for Andy's Pizza in DC the night President Joe Biden dropped out and endorsed her. I found that kind of curious. Like, I don't know Andy's Pizza. I want to look it up. And that apparently some of these WAPO people, they use their they look at congressional finance reports about where the congressmen are eating as their restaurant recommendations, which is kind of clever. So they say they're going to go there. So they
that's smart. That's kind of like there's an investment club that follows Nancy Pelosi's investments because she's become super rich because she trades on insider information. Let's just say it, right? So if you invest like Nancy does, you're going to get rich.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess if you eat like Nancy does, you're going to eat well. So
well, she probably doesn't eat that much. She's kind of a bird.
Well, yeah, she's pretty thin for her age. So they said we limited our analysis to places that racked up at least $5,000 in campaign spending, coming up with a list of roughly 500 popular restaurants and food purveyors involving more than 21,000 receipts worth a collective $13 million. And this is for this campaign season.
Wow.
So here's what it looks like from the major chains. So if in the red is GOP, in the blue is more Democrat spending money there. So the big money in food for the campaigns is Chick-fil-A and McDonald's for the GOP, while on the Democratic side, it's Le Pain Quotidien. Is that right, Ted?
Quotidien. You do not pronounce the U. It's as if it's just quotidien.
Quotidien. So Le Pain.
Democrats have better taste, man. Although I guess people like Chick-fil-A is the gay bashing chicken place.
But Chick-fil-A is delicious. I will take Chick-fil-A over Le Pain every day. But here's Starbucks and Panera Bread. If you hover over like Whole Foods, they go by at Whole Foods. It's showing Disney. I don't know what you eat at Disney, but I don't know. Corner Bakery.
Weird.
That's all Democrats. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
I'm with the Republicans on Ruth's Chris. That's good.
Mission Barbecue. I don't know. Hy-Vee Grocery. I don't know. Jersey Mike's.
Oh,
Walmart.
That's Subs.
Jimmy John's. Harris Teeter.
BBQ. Man, the Republicans love BBQ. That's a thing.
They like barbecue and meat. They like meat and potatoes, and
yeah,
that's what that tells me. And I think.
And the Democrats are, well, frankly, healthier. They're eating like Panera and like Le Pain is definitely healthier for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And there's another like Whole Foods is another big one that they spent a lot of money on.
Yeah, because for people who don't know, who
divide.
don't have Whole Foods, there's often like a little deli section where you can sit down. Yeah. Yeah,
like a hot bar and a cold bar, and you can also just
I don't
go.
think it's that good, to be honest.
No, it's not. It's not. It's overpriced, I would say.
Like, it's insane. Yeah, whole page
tuna salad.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. 25.
No, thank you. But I feel like, Ted, this speaks to
the cultural divide.
The cultural divide that the normal hard work and salt of the earth, blue collar folks, the guys with the rough hands, they're buying at Walmart. They're eating at Chick-fil-A. Your plumber is eating at Chick-fil-A, not Le Pain, right? And I think that, am I reading this wrong? Am I being politically, I guess, I don't know. I don't know if I call it racist, but what would you call that?
Gastrist. Well, look, I think it's interesting about cultural signifiers, right? For a long time, until like Tesla was associated with liberal Democratic buyers. Then when it became known that Musk was, pivoting more toward the right, then his sales among liberals dropped, and then liberal sales among Trump supporters went up. So for sure, all of these kind of things make a difference. I don't know if people. Look, these are campaign workers. Okay, they're all elites, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, no question about it. So, but it's interesting that Republican, elites eat more like Republican voters, and Democratic elites
Right.
vote, eat more like Democratic voters. So, I mean, I guess.
Look, we know Donald
not that
Trump
shocking.
loves McDonald's.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's for real. He does.
like that's a legitimate.
By the way,
thing.
that's super interesting, right? Because who was the last president famous for loving McDonald's? Bill Clinton, who was the
Oh,
most, I would
right.
say, the biggest, even more than Obama, was the biggest rock star Democratic politician that the party has had in
Think so?
decades. Yeah, I mean, even more than, yeah, I mean, Obama was, I liked how, Maureen Dowd at the Times called him Spock. He was not very relatable. Even people who liked him a lot.
Yeah.
But like Bill Clinton, he famously snuck out of the White House in his orange jogging shorts for a snack at Mickey D's. He missed it. He was like trapped
my
inside.
God.
And he was like, I gotta go. And then he was like famously filmed like at McDonald's. Like now I gotta say, gotta hand it to the Donald. When he goes to McDonald's, he buys burgers for everyone there, right? Like
Yes.
like the first responders.
And he
in
serves it.
Palestine. Yeah,
He serves it at Trump Force One.
and he served it to the athletes, although I imagine that those athletes, I forget which ones they were, like I guess these were the guys who won the Super Bowl or something. I can't imagine that many athletes really eat like that. I mean, well, they shouldn't.
Not
Right.
regularly, no, because they have like personal chefs and stuff to keep them in tip-top condition, obviously.
Yeah.
But the Trump campaign, it says here in the article that for Trump, the answer is frequently McDonald's. His campaign is responsible for virtually all of the roughly $36,000 in federal candidates spending at McDonald's, basically since January of 2023. So that's roughly 86% of the receipts that they looked over. Republicans like McDonald's, and then
I mean, I have to
Chick-fil-A.
look. I'm not gonna lie. There's a McDonald's like across the street from my apartment, and have I been known to sneak over there for the Friday free
Like Bill
fries,
Clinton?
the free extra fries on Friday special, which you can only get through the app. Which, by the way, I'm totally. I love doing the app where you can do sit down service at McDonald's. You just go take a table.
What?
You can just go sit down at a table and then order from your table, and they bring you your food. It's like being in a restaurant.
That's got to be only in New York because I've not seen
think?
it here in the
Oh my
DC
God,
Metro.
it's so good.
No, I've not
It's the
seen
same
that.
price. Yeah. So
I really have
but I gotta
lost
say
a taste for McDonald's.
but I gotta say, so I do like BK and Wendy's as well, and they all have their place. Like McDonald's has like that total reliability. BK
Yes,
is
same
fresher.
everywhere.
It doesn't always taste exactly the same everywhere, but sometimes
Yes.
it's a bonus. It's like sometimes, like especially if you're like in Ohio or like Kentucky, it's gonna be so fucking good. In
Well,
New York, BK
look.
is like it's like it might be
Look.
like mouse.
McDonald's lost me when they changed their apple pies from those deep fried, like it looked like a Hot Pocket that was deep fried. And now that they've changed it to this baked thing with the open top, that was like my main driver to go to McDonald's, and maybe their French fries. But now I just don't do it because their pies don't do it for me. And I make a better
I
burger.
never
at
had
home,
those pies,
so.
but I know that my dad used to love those pies.
Love
He said they were
those
so
deep fried apple pie from McDonald's, like in the 80s and 90s, and then by the 2000s.
But there's a certain thing about
changed
Wendy's,
it.
like the Wendy's meat tastes different. I can't put my finger on it.
Because it's square.
Because it's square.
Square meat tastes different.
It comes from a square cow, as is scientifically known, and but I don't know, or a cubic cow. But I'm not really sure why it tasted. But sometimes you're in the mood for that particular taste. Now, those are my,
I don't
and
know.
I'm not. You're a California girl. There's the
We have In-N-Out.
lifestyle, which
We
is
have In-N-Out, so.
it is really good, and it tastes fresh, but it's not like that good. We're not like holy shit, like the first time people were like, isn't it?
It's
great?
good.
I was like, it's good.
It's good. It's a good, solid, fresh burger. And I could tell you because I work there. Shout out to Store 49 on Whittier Boulevard in Pico Rivera, California. That's where I used to work. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, every freaking morning, there was a truck that brought us cold meat. There was a truck that brought us fresh potatoes, fresh lettuce, fresh tomatoes. There was a truck that brought us the buns, and we had like the milkshake cartons that we had to put into the, so like everything was
Yeah.
legitimately real. Cause I remember peeling potatoes. I remember
Well,
having to, everything was real and fresh, and it is real
let me
food.
tell you a counterfactual, and
So,
we should go. Before we go, though, I want to give a shout out to Art Town on the Rumble feed, who's our very first monthly subscriber instead of
woo!
one-time subscriber. So thank you, Art
One-time
Town.
donation. Thank
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
Art Town.
All right.
Thank you.
Art Town's bringing.
Yeah. So
Thank you. So, but I was going to
sweet.
say in terms. So I used to work at Wendy's. Not
Mm,
Wendy's. I never worked at Wendy's. I'm not. I don't want to be like Kamala Harris, where I have dubious fast food
wow.
stories. Although I don't think she lied, but
I don't think she lied either.
but you know, why would you lie about that, really? But I worked at Friendly's in Kettering, Ohio,
Oh,
and at Eichelberger Shopping Center, and I got fired for trying to unionize. But anyway, always the rabble rouser.
that's
But
pretty
I was
funny.
15, and anyway, the I remember. So it was 15 means that I was born in 63, so this was 1978, right? And I was on one time the delivery truck came from Friendly's Central, which was in Massachusetts. It's a Massachusetts-based company. I lived in Ohio, and the truck arrived all frozen as shit in the middle of the summer. We unloaded all of the patties, which were also like Wendy's squared, and they were, when you open the box, they were all perforated. All of the they were like stamps, like they were like 12 patties side by side, and you tore them apart at the edges, frozen solid, in order to cook them up. Now, and then there would be like wax paper, and then be another set under those, like that. Anyway, the side of the box, this will date the story. I don't know if I think you're too young to remember this, but on the side of the box was the American Bicentennial logo, because they had been packaged in 76. So those were 2-year-old burgers, 2 years old. Now, the thing is, my mom, like many other people, used to think that if you froze meat, that it basically went into suspended animation, like mammoths in the permafrost. But like, it's not that cold. It's not true. And like meat, even if it's like 0 degrees in the freezer, it just rots slower, but it rots.
It goes bad. Yeah, it goes bad.
So it's slowly rotting in there.
We did not have that at In-N-Out, and that's why In-N-Out is a staple. But of course, the WAPO can't review that because it's primarily a California thing. Although they have branched out to a couple of other places, but it is still family owned. Let me tell you, and I think they were the first ones to, before the law was even enacted, or I don't know, they immediately moved to pay people $20 an hour at In-N-Out Burger in California.
Whoa, good.
Yeah.
Well, pay people. I mean, minimum wage ought to be $60 an hour right now.
When I worked there in the early mid 90s, it was $6.50 an hour, and I thought, because they always paid everybody well above market, and this is and I was at $6.50 an hour, which was very impressive for the early mid 90s. So shout out to In-N-Out. It is fresh food, but they're, only politicians in California could probably write off In-N-Out.
Yeah,
but
somehow I don't see Gavin Newsom eating there. We should wrap.
Yeah. So if you guys want to check out what the money actually looks like, where they're spending their food or spending money on food, and who is spending what where, Washington Post article, go check it out. It's pretty, I don't know if it's eye-opening, but it's kind of what you expect, based on stereotype. It is exactly what you expect, however you want to take that. So that's it.
All right.
Yeah. So I like it. And Ted and I like food. So, anyway, guys, we're going to wrap that up.
It's the starvation alternative.
Yes.
I'm speaking to you, Israelis. Let food into Gaza, asshole.
That's right.
Fuckers.
Yeah. Well, we should be talking to President Biden, because he's still president, I think. President-ish, or President Blinken, or President Sullivan, or whoever.
We should maybe add an amendment to the Constitution, like for a position for a Biden-like figure who nominally holds the position but doesn't fulfill any of the functions or duties, like they shall be known as the President-ish of the United States.
The President-ish. The President Emeritus.
Yeah. For years I thought that was emeritus, like a disease.
That sounds bad. All right, we're gonna leave that right there, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our friend and moderator and producer Putinbot Gaming for support, moderating the chat, keeping the haters out of there. Because look, Ted and
Thank
I are
you.
all for people. You could throw shade in there, but if you're constantly going to spam and constantly just berate people, troll in the chat
No,
room,
disagree like a
watch out,
motherfucker.
dude.
That's totally cool.
Right.
We're all
I'm
about
fine
it.
with people disagreeing. I don't care. But if you're going to act like an obscene and annoying troll,
Yeah.
like you're getting booted. I don't care if you say, oh, Manila, you look fat today, or Manila, fine, once or twice. I get it. Fine, I look fat today, or you know, comb your hair, whatever. But if you're going to keep trolling, we got Putin bot right there.
Yeah, he's on
Boom.
it. Yeah.
Like super border patrol. Boom. Thank you. Go check out Putin Bot Gaming's channel to support that indie creator as well. Because you know, we're all indie creators and need help. So we ask that you guys do hit the subscribe button, $5 per month in that Rumble chat at the very bottom. Hit the button, not
Don't
the dollar.
forget YouTube. Don't forget YouTube.
I'm not shading on
You're-
YouTube, but
I know you
I
love
just-
your Rumble more.
I'm a Rumbler, and I'm going to say hit that subscribe button in the Rumble chat, not the $, the button next to it that says subscribe. That's where you can do the $5 per month.
And we are going to be, for people who might be wondering, we are working right now on doing the audio feed out to people who prefer to just, you know, they might not want to see my face. I don't blame them. You can just listen to the audio on, like, you know, Apple or whatnot. So that's going to be happening in the next week or two. So we'll keep you posted.
Yes. Again, we kind of had to throw the show together. So thank you for bearing with us through any of these bumps and hiccups, and it'll get better. So thank you guys. We'll leave it right there. Putinbot Gaming, go check that out. Ted Rall, Manila Chan, out. We'll see you guys on Monday. Adios, amigos.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you for supporting us through this new venture. Adios.
Bye, everyone.